We're moving to item 11, and we're going to be addressed on the funding and supplier recognition for Te Hanoa Victoria Street Linear Park. Somewhere there's a decent map of this somewhere, I saw it. We've got Jenny Larking, Oliver Smith and John Shea who will address us. The agenda, page 31. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr Mayor. Thank you for that. We're here this morning, as you've said, to report on the Te Hanoa Victoria Linear Park project. I have with me the two staff leading that project. Firstly, Jenny Larking, who's the Manager, City Centre Programs in the Development Program Office, and is also the Program Director for the Midtown Program, acting on behalf of the Council Group, also by Oliver Smith, who is also in the Development Program Office and is the project lead for the Te Hanoa project. We've got two papers coming to the board, or the governing body today. Firstly, this one, which is a general update on the project, and then this afternoon, at this afternoon's confidential session, we have a report coming dealing with approval for funding and for appointment of a contractor. And now I'll hand over to Jenny Larking to take you through the report.
Yeah, thank you, John. So I just wanted to acknowledge first the project name. Te Hanoa is a name that's been gifted by our mana whenua partner for the project. So the name is to evoke a sense of freedom to breathe and to experience the surrounding as people travel. So that's, I guess, the project and mana whenua's aspirations for this project. So the project that we're talking about today is a streetscape project on Victoria Street, from Federal Street up through to Kitchener Street on Albert Street, by Albert Park. So the project is intended to deliver and improve the streets around the proposed new City Rail Link Te Waihorotu station that will improve the quality, safety and accessibility of the street environment to and from the City Rail Link station. So, I do have the pointer, thank you. So this project delivers on the city centre master plan. So the master plan is a vision set for the city centre and approved by the previous planning committee in March 2020. So the master plan envisaged that some of our most important and historic parks, from Albert Park through to Victoria Park, will be connected through a network of tree-lined, high-quality public spaces and walking routes. So the new City Rail Link station located in Midtown will transform the area. So what it will mean for Midtown is that it allows access from across the region into the unique offering that's in Midtown of the various arts, culture and entertainment venues, as well as the largest universities in New Zealand. We're anticipating that the new station will catalyse growth and private sector investment and jobs in the area as an attractive place to live and work with wide choices for employment, education, recreation, social and cultural opportunities. The Te Hanoa project, as part of the wider Midtown program, is working to kickstart regeneration, and it's building for the future of Midtown, where thousands of people will pour out of the station to visit and work in the area, as well as the many people who will call Midtown home. Before I pass over to Oliver to talk to the design, we do have hard copies of the design plans if any of the councillors would like to receive a copy?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Just passing out the general arrangement or general layout plans for the Tahanoa scheme. So the plans in front of us show the streetscape upgrade between Federal Street to Kitchener Street to the east. The section between Federal Street and Elliott Street has been designed and is being delivered by the City Rail Link project. You can see the two station portals on either side of Albert Street to the left. Auckland Council is delivering the section from Elliott Street to Kitchener Street, and this is the section that is focus of our reports today. So the project will deliver attractive and safe spaces for the increased movements of people following the opening of the new City Rail Link Te Waiharatu station. Features of the design include substantially widened footpaths on the southern side of the street to support the people movement, new native trees and planting, a protected bi-directional cycle lane on the southern side, 2 vehicle lanes for general traffic, 1 in each direction, and provision for loading and servicing with pull-in spaces on the northern side, and you can see those spaces either side of the Queen Street on blocks B and C. So the project has been programmed to be delivered in stages. The first stage of Tahanoa from Elliott Street to Queen Street, Block B, is to be delivered to align with the streetscape works being undertaken by the City Rail Link project around the new station portals. Both projects need to achieve a similar level of completion to enable the reopening of Victoria Street and Albert Street intersection for December this year. The main streetscape works for the eastern half, Block C, are planned to kick off early in 2024, and works are being coordinated with the developing water care program in that area. So I've just got a couple of renders to walk through. So this is a render looking down towards the west from Kitchener Street. So High Street's in the background there. So the design seeks to create spaces that are better urban environments, spaces that are more attractive and healthier for people to work, live in and experience. Places to rest and pause with improved local amenity. 3 new drinking fountains are being incorporated through the project footprint. New green spaces will enhance the urban biodiversity in this part of the city centre with the inclusion of understory planting and more than 20 new native trees. This is a render looking down to the east, so down towards the Queen Street Valley and up towards Albert Park in the distance. So this shows the improvements and the connections for walking and cycling. One gets a good sense of the experience one would have coming out of the new station portal. Providing increases of spaces for the people movement that Jenny mentioned earlier. We are also providing spaces for cycle and scooter parking along the project corridor. The project also looks to foster a stronger sense of belonging and community. The design has been developed with mana whenua and seeks to improve the presence of Māori culture and identity so locals and visitors feel that Victoria Street reflects the identity and characteristics of Tamaki Makaurau. Cultural design features are to be incorporated in items like new stone terrace seating, new artwork within the street equipment. Right. We've been working very closely with City Rail Link, Watercare, Auckland Transport and Vector to carefully sequence the works in the area. This is an overview of Midtown program works. You can see the City Rail Link streetscape works and footprint, the area that we've been talking about with the Tahanoa project, joining the CRL site down the valley across to Kitchener Street, the Auckland Transport-led Wellesley Street bus improvements, the overstation development, as well as significant works being planned by both Watercare and Vector, who are investing in future-proofing their networks in this area of Midtown, and doing so allowing for future growth and capacity in this part of the city centre. You can see the Watercare footprint around Merrill Drive and down Queen Street. So the teams have been working closely to coordinate the works by developing a common program, sharing of traffic management plans and civil designs, work scheduling, and improved coordination with the intent of reducing risk. Delaying the Tahanoa construction could prolong the closure of Victoria Street and delay construction on Wellesley Street. As I mentioned earlier, the plan is for the western half to align with the streetscape works being delivered by City Rail Link project to open the intersection of the Victoria Albert Street intersection at the end of this year. So, as I mentioned, delaying the Tahanoa construction could prolong the closure of Victoria Street and extend the duration of construction in Midtown, as well as risk digging twice.
We're very conscious that the construction in the area would have an impact on the surrounding properties, businesses and residents, as well as the people who visit and work in the area. So as part of the work that we're planning, we have developed a comprehensive program to help mitigate the impact of construction, building on some of our lessons learnt from recent constructions like the K Road precinct, the downtown program, as well as some of the learnings from City Rail Link. So based on our research and what we have heard directly from businesses and property owners, we are carefully planning and sequencing the construction so that we're able to minimise the duration and exposure of the impacts on any one area at any given time, things like noise and dust and vibration. We're also working with businesses to protect events in the city centre and also some of the key shopping periods so that retailers can continue to respond to customers. Part of our work is also to ensure that the area continue to feel safe, attractive, vibrant and welcoming throughout the construction period. So we have a program to address graffiti, security and antisocial behaviour, and ensuring that the area is cleaned and maintained, and also working with property owners to address vacant stalls throughout that construction period. We have a program to support small businesses, including a dedicated business connector, on-street liaison, as well as supporting them to make use of new public spaces as it comes online, such as outdoor dinings. And we'll be working with Auckland Transport to take a precinct-based approach to traffic management to ensure that public transport can still operate reliably, people and goods can still move around safely, and customers and property and resident can still access their properties effectively throughout the construction time. So the project has been under planning for a number of years, so including a public consultation that was undertaken in 2021. So during that public consultation period, we have 73% of people, submitters, expressing support for the design. Last year, we have received approval from the previous Strategic Procurement Committee to go out to tender for the construction contract. We have now finished the tender process and will be seeking approval to award the construction contract later on this afternoon at the confidential session. And subject to approval, we are looking to start construction in early April. We are acutely aware of the financial challenges that Auckland Council is facing at this stage, and but we're also aware that delaying the construction start will have significant cost implications, disruptions, as well as impact to the communities. So that's why we'll be making a recommendation to seek an increased allocation to fund the project through the city centre targeted rate. That will allow alleviation of the required borrowing and general rate expenditure on this project. And with that, we hope to be able to gain the approval to start construction on this project in a timely manner. So in conclusion, so this project has been worked on for the last few years and delivers on the Auckland Council vision for the city centre that's been approved by the Planning Committee. There is a real urgency to start construction in early April due to the complex interfaces and for us to manage the impact to the community. And we will be recommending to the governing body that we are able to award the construction contract and that we will be increasing the city centre target rate funding towards this project to basically reduce the borrowing required by $34.2 million. And we will be happy to take questions on the open report and making those seeking approval at the confidential meeting later this afternoon.
Thank you. I'll take questions about what we've seen here at the moment, and I've got Councillor Darby, Councillor Turner and Councillor Lee and Councillor Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, team. Look, I've just asked a question earlier in the day, and I've asked it just in a break of what the situation is with the absence of the City Centre Advisory Panel. And Jenny, as you well know, the panel, I think it was only in August last year, reviewed its priorities for the city centre targeted rate. It made that advice came through to council, and we updated things. And now we don't have that advisory panel in place, yet we're making a dramatic change. This is a substantial change, and we're not hearing from those who are being taxed for this reallocation. So my question is, I want to explore with you how this decision, if we make it, can stick when we don't have the advice of those who are paying the tax, the city centre targeted rate, represented through the advisory panel. Can you please give some guidance in that regard?
Through the Chair, the advisory panel, following the governing body's endorsement of the establishment of panel back in December 2020. So the establishment process is underway and led by Ike Panuku as the lead officer for the advisory panel. Due to the panel not being established, we are unable to seek advice. Normally, we would be seeking their advice prior to reporting to the governing body. I understand, and if the finance team wants to make a comment here, that the delegation for the allocation of the city centre target rate sits with the governing body with advice from the advisory panel normally, but the delegation and approval sits with the governing body.
Okay, so my question was, well, what are the consequences of us making a decision which is not informed by the advisory panel, which represents those that pay the targeted rate? Because this is not a small change. This is a substantial change. It's a big deviation. So what are the consequences? You know, if this panel is going to be convened next week or 2 weeks, can we wait, or is there urgency to proceed and let contracts, etc.?
through the chair, there is an absolutely urgency to actually award the contract and proceed with the works due to, I guess, quite significant impacts of the delay. We are making this recommendation cognizant that the council is reprioritising its capital works program in response to that significant budget shortfall. So we felt that we're able to alleviate the, I guess, the borrowing required on the general rate by using the city centre targeted rate.
If I may just add a little bit to that, thanks, Jenny. My understanding is that the team has actually looked at the program of works, the capital programs of works coming up in the future, and this does not have a material impact on that. The impact might be out in future years, some years out, where the delivery program is less clear than it is at the moment. So the actual program of works from here on isn't directly impacted by it, Councillor.
Oh, I might just add to that as well. Yes, so you're just following what Barry is saying. The immediate, because of the reserve that's being held in the city centre target rate, there is no immediate impact to the projects that are planned or underway in the next 2 to 3 years. So the projects that are required to be reprioritised are in the years beyond that, and we will be committed to seeking the city centre advisory panel's input to that reprioritisation.
And through the chair, I think it's worth making one final point in response to the councillor's question, which is the criticality of the timing. I think Oliver Smith set out the criticality of coordinating the various projects, the AT project, the CRLL project and the water care project, the criticality of ensuring that the works are not delayed so that Victoria Street, Albert Street intersection opening is delayed, because if that was delayed, then that would mean that it couldn't, the Wellesley Street bus improvement projects would be delayed, and it's hard to emphasise how complex this project is in terms of the various interweaving components and how critical the timing is.
Good points, thanks very much. Councillor Turner, please.
Mr. Mayor, I think mine's a comment. I should keep it to comment.
I'm going to spit it out now.
Okay. Can we afford this? You know, I've only been here 6 months. Everything that comes in front of us has a big, long daisy train of stuff behind it, and I'm told it's critical. All I can do is look forward. Auckland is the biggest council in New Zealand with over 4,200 square kilometres. Everybody out there thinks that the money's being sucked into the centre and only spent in the centre, and this is evidence that it is. We are so broke, we're having trouble to help our few poor people who have been flooded without going into borrowings. We have to start cutting back on some ABS. We can't afford this right now. On the council emails, it says at the bottom of them, during COVID, it's not business as usual, or it used to say that. When we're broke, it's not business as usual. We need to make some serious savings. Thank you.
Perhaps I can answer this. Most of this comes out of a targeted rate we've already hit those people for. So your people out in the west aren't actually going to miss out on anything unless I've got that hideously wrong. Is that correct?
We'll have trouble convincing them that, Mr. Mayor, but thank you.
Through the chair, that is quite correct, and that this comes out of the proposal is to bring this out of the targeted rate, which has a reserve in there. So this is affordable, and we think this is the best way forward. And as John has mentioned, the timing of this is pretty important because of the flow onto other projects that are already committed.
Councillor Lee.
Yes, thank you very much. The area is covered in the city centre master plan, and this area is called the engine room of the region, and there's a lot of truth in that. In regard to the presentation, we've heard a lot about the undoubted amenity improvements the project will bring, native tree planting, and even enhancement of biodiversity. But this area has been disrupted, this Victoria Street in particular, since late 2015. And what I'm concerned about is what the presentation suggested, a joined up approach. I think it's not joined up enough, and there are two things missing from it. The input of the people who live and work in this area, and secondly, the transport implications, given this area is the strategic centre of all our transport planning and transport assets, including obviously the future City Rail Link. But there are complications around that, and what I'm suggesting, would the officers be open and the governing body be open to referring this proposal to the Transport and Infrastructure Committee so that the wider transport implications can be discussed, but also the concerns of the city centre residents group, but also the concerns of Heart of the City, which the Chief Executive has expressed quite a lot of concern about. And I think, I'm sure these concerns can be resolved, but I think we need to take a little bit more time before signing this off essentially in secret. I think we need to open the door and bring in Heart of the City and bring in the city centre residents group and bring in the state players, bring in the people who who have a real concern about this and do the job properly. Thank you.
All right.
You'd be willing to do that?
I hope not. I mean, these poor buggers have been brought in since 2018 or something or other. I was a young
Mr. Mayor, I can
man when
move.
heard
I
of
can
this
move
first
an
time.
amendment if that's suitable.
Anyone who seconds that is going to be threatened within an inch of their life. No enough. Could I please have the next person, Councillor Walker?
My concerns echo those of Councillor Lee. The report notes that the businesses and the people living in this vicinity have already suffered 5 years of disruption. The impact on businesses has been nothing short of life-threatening for those businesses. So I've got huge concerns around the disruption. The disruption that businesses has suffered as a consequence of the CRLL has been an unmitigated disaster and continues. I see very little in this item that gives me much confidence that everything will be expedited so that it minimises disruption as much as possible. Things like the number of cones concern me. The way that the project is managed without wanting to get into it in any detail, and I'm quite certain that we may well be able to find some financial savings. So I think if ever there's a time for this council to refer something to the infrastructure committee, for us to have some oversight, that time's now. Thank you.
Okay, Richard Hills, please.
Thank you, and thanks for this. Obviously, this has been consulted on a number of times and supported incredibly with huge numbers for this project. So glad to see it moving forward. My questions are, one, how will this, I mean, it looks like an alliance project, but on quite a small scale. How is the revenue sharing or the spend happening? Are you confident that we're not counting the concrete 3 times or something where you've got Vector and others putting it down? Is this just the costs for the benefits on top of what is already being dug up?
To the Chair, this project is an area that's not part of the City Rail Link scope and not part of the scope of Auckland Transport. It overlaps with some of the infrastructure works done by Victor, but they are managed on a quite strictly commercial basis.
Yeah, I guess my question is around the station holes and everything, that is all kind of incorporated. Is that being done at the same time?
Yeah, so the construction is staged to be done in parallel, but the scope is quite distinct, so that there is it's quite well separated.
Perhaps if I can just add to that, there is a high level of coordination between CRLL, the team here, and Vector and Auckland Transport. They actually work quite very closely together to get this to achieve this outcome.
Thank you. The other question, the 10 million, I'm finding it difficult to understand what part is delayed or cancelled. So the Hobson Street, which is probably the most dangerous and least desirable part of that stretch, it's pretty unwelcoming from a pedestrian perspective with so many residents up there. Can you explain to me what the decision is to delay / cancel that section? I can't tell what this section is apart from $10 million.
Yeah, through the Chair, so that section is earmarked to be designed at a later date, so the design currently hasn't been developed for that area, so because it's and doesn't form part of the construction contract. So I guess the plan is to actually with that budget is to progress with the design and complete the design following the CRL opening.
Okay, and so my concern is, Mayor, sorry, the disruption to redoing that again. Is there, and I don't know who's answering that question, is there a better way to be adding that now if it's going to happen anyway, so then we're not coming back as another contract? We would have to approve another 10 million. Right. Okay. We've got an email from the city centre residents who say that it could be that 10 million could come out of the city centre targeted rate, so it all continued as one overall project. I don't know if that's possible or not. It just seems like a wasted opportunity or missed opportunity.
Sorry, I'm not sure if that was a question there about that, but look, at the moment at this stage, the works are from the CRLL completion down towards Queen Street and up the other side to the park, to Albert Park. Look, you could include that in there. I think myself, the level of disruption associated with those works on the other side of CRL, that can be managed later on. And I think that can be done once Wellesley Street works are completed and you still have the good traffic flows around that city centre area.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps I could add that when we do get round to approving this, if we ever live that long, I'll make absolutely sure that there's a condition that any of the contractors' utes who are parked in areas in front of businesses will be crushed. Right, Councillor Ferry.
Thank you. And just picking up on Councillor Hill's point about the email that we've all received from the City Centre Residents Group, noting that they've said that they support the proposal in front of us around the targeted rate. I wondered though, have views been sought from the Waitemata Local Board? Understand the issues about the fact that the City Centre Advisory Panel hasn't been set up yet, and I would just note for members that the City Centre Advisory Panel is different from the demographic advisory panels, and that the people who are on it are representatives of organisations. It doesn't have to go through the long recruitment process that we're undertaking for the demographic panels. But in the absence of that being established, were Waitemata Local Board asked to give views on specifically on that targeted rate aspect? And if so, what were those views? Because they're not in the report.
Through the chair, the Waitemata Local Board has provided support for the formal support for the project and has been updated, regularly on the project progress. We have not specifically sought the Waitemata Local Board's view on allocation of the city centre targeted rate. Because it's usually the City Centre Advisory Panel are the panel to provide advice on that respect.
Okay, but in the absence of the City Centre Advisory Panel, that wasn't considered as wouldn't be a replacement, but it would be some assistance, surely.
We have not sought their views.
Okay, so further question then, and look, completely understand the criticality of the timing. I think this is going to be an amazing addition for the city to support the project, but I do have concerns about the process here, and I would like to understand why this didn't come to us earlier, because my view is there is now no opportunity to defer to go to Transport and Infrastructure to seek that additional input on what is a significant change. We do probably just have to do this. With construction starting in early April, which is 2 weeks away, why didn't this agenda item come to us sooner? Thank you.
Through the chair, normally the approval of tender process and tender award typically goes to the Expenditure Control and Procurement Committee, and it's because the construction contractors don't tend to hold their prices for a long time, which is why it's quite common for us to actually seek approval prior to or shortly before construction start. So the reason this was brought to the governing body is that the decision for award of the contract overlaps with the process of capital prioritisation, and given that we're not able from a construction perspective, we're not able to wait for the conclusion of that capital prioritisation process, and through discussion with the finance team, we thought that the advice is to be able to facilitate this project to go forward as soon as possible while alleviating some of the pressures on the general rates and borrowing as not to compromise the capital prioritisation process, which is why it's coming to the governing body.
So can I just clarify, please, with your indulgence, Mr. Chair? So what I took from that is that it's not unusual for big projects of this nature to come to us 2 weeks before construction starts. Is that what you're saying?
For award of construction contract, it's usually not too far ahead of construction due to the prices limited for a certain amount of time.
Yep, I did hear that the first time you said it. So, but is this the normal time? This is my first term on governing body. I'm used to local board land where things seem to have a much longer lead time. So this is a normal time frame?
Perhaps if I can just try and clarify that. So what happens is the project's been approved. It then goes through a procurement process, which is the tender and so on and so forth. Then normally you've then got to award a contract, and that award requires confirmation through in the past, the procurement committee. And as soon as that was done, the contract was awarded immediately after. So that was the final formal part of the award process. In this case, it's coming here because of the reasons that Jenny has outlined. So there's not normally a long time between the close of a tender, coming to a committee. It would come to the next committee in the past, and then award would happen after that.
Sure. I note that the Expenditure Control and Procurement, which I'm on, met on Tuesday, so I think there might be an issue there for that chair to pursue as to why it's before us at governing body then, but I'll leave that for now. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Watson, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to try and get my head around, and thank you for this plan. That's very helpful. It's a rare treat for us these days to have a plan that we can actually read in front of us. But just in respect of this project as a whole, the linear park project as a whole, so the Hobson to Federal bit, that's off the table. That's not happening here. Federal to Elliott gets covered by the CRL, which essentially leaves us Elliott to Queen and then Queen up to Kitchener. What's the length of that? I mean, I see this is 50.5 million. What is the length of Elliott to the start of Kitchener? Is that a few hundred metres? I doubt if it's a K.
And it's downhill.
Look, through the chair, look, I don't have the specific number with me, but there's a sort of a scale on the general arrangement drawing, which might give you a sense. Roughly each block, say from High Street to Kitchener, looks to be just over 50 odd metres.
Over, sorry?
50 odd metres.
300, 350,
Oh, so
375 metres,
Yeah.
thereabouts.
Oh, okay. Three, yeah, okay. So I mean that to me seems to be kind of an extraordinary price tag, and I know people have said the city centre targeted rate is picking up under this proposal 34 million, but rates and borrowing is still 16 million, isn't it, in the proposal? Over 16 million.
It's only about 375
Yeah.
metres.
Okay, so, and I bring this up, Mr. Mayor, because we've just been through this, this exercise with the City Rail Link itself. That seems to me to be a particularly high cost for a few hundred metres really on both sides of the road. That's the first point I'd make. In terms of the divvy up of the city centre targeted rate, that increases 24 million. So the people that pay that rate, and I was trying to follow what the various contributors have said. So the heart of the city haven't been consulted on this change then. Okay, and they supply the lion's share of this rate. Okay, so that's not actually optimal itself. In terms, and again I think of the CRL, in terms of the security of that figure, what sort of guarantee do we have that that doesn't increase in that or blow out in that, given our recent experiences? Is that based on a P50 or a P10 or what?
I think we'll take the questions about the detail of the cost and the contract when we go into the thing later on, but I'll get your thing about the overall cost, but in terms of how we're going to inquire about the way that the contract's written with the contractor, that'll have to go in this afternoon's.
Okay, so I guess, Mr. Mayor, my final question, and it follows on really from Councillor Turner. When I look at point 45, there's what seems to me to be something of a value judgment made that staff consider that at this time there are greater benefits to properties in the city centre than the rest of the region. I'll say that again, there are greater benefits to the city centre than other parts of the region. In my humble view, and I'll just make my very quick comment now if you don't mind, so I won't come back for a speech, is the city centre has done disproportionately well out of the last few years and the last decade in particular. And I actually find that statement, a little objectionable, and I'm sure there's other councillors have projects in their wards. I have one, a major arterial, doesn't have a footpath, has a major secondary school, has a intermediate school, has a primary school, has a dangerous intersection, has been waiting for about 14 years. I personally would see that as more of a priority rather than another, dusting up of the inner city yet again, after the America's Cup, after the Queen Street, after the waterfront, after all these things. So I just think it's important to put that on the record, Mr. Mayor, because I think a lot of Aucklanders would disagree with that in terms of priorities. Thank you.
Fair enough. Councillor Leone. Councillor Leone has been won over by your arguments. Councillor Lee.
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, I would like to suggest an addition to C, after Auckland Transport, put in stakeholders, including or especially city centre targeted ratepayers, because they have an important stake in this and they really need, they're paying the money, they need to be consulted. The whole area was subject to a gridlock not so long ago, a few days ago, because something happened on a motorway several kilometres distance from the city centre, but it shut down the whole city centre. So our whole roading network is interlinked, interconnected, and quite sensitive at this time to disruption. I think it's very important that we consult with those people from heart of the city and the city residents who are paying this rate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Vote of support as the only city resident and the only one who's contributed to it. I have to declare an interest. I think it's a bloody good thing. Councillor Baker.
Thanks, Your Worship, and I speak not to prove that I've been paying attention.
Can we put that in?
Look, I guess speaking to some of the things that Ken and John have been talking about, we all come from parts of Auckland where we'd love to see bitumen, and we have projects we would love to see done. But I endorse this project. I think, we just need to get onto it. And I sort of can't help but notice the irony of the comments about how these people have suffered and the businesses have suffered, and we're wanting to delay it even further by popping it into another committee. Yeah. And we contribute to that. We contribute to the delay. We contribute to the pain that those businesses are feeling. And so, from someone who comes from the furthest part of the region, absolutely endorse it. Let's get on with it. And thank you for paying, Mr Mayor. Love your work. We just need to move on and stop trying to do. We're our own worst enemies in delaying stuff. So let's just get on with it.
Yes, and it's just been clarified. The city centre master plan was initiated in 2011, which is probably why some of you have forgotten about it. I think they have delayed a bit. Councillor Bartley, please.
Thank you. I'm the same, just get on with it. And I understand the need to not put this off to another committee. I also note that this is noting. We're noting this report. My question is about the funding mix. How come, because, I hear the same complaints. Everybody keeps saying we do too much in the city centre, and even what we're doing in our own suburbs are going to be jeopardised by the cuts to Eke Panuku. So I'm wanting to know why was there a consideration of the funding mix just being all funded by the city centre targeted rate?
Okay, we're nearly home. Councillor Hills.
I haven't had a response to my question. I haven't had an answer back to my question.
Oh, humble apologies. I thought it was a comment.
That was a question.
I think the advice for that was actually received from the finance team, and we'll have to defer to them. I think that's correct, isn't it, Jenny? So, I think.
Magic Andrew.
The report discusses the options, the key options that we spoke about, which were to continue with the current funding mix or to move to the preferred funding option that had been dealt with. Moving to fully funding it from the targeted rate rather than having any general rates funding would probably still be within the scope of the matters that were set out in the report that weighs the alternative funding options. So I don't remember us specifically debating that, but given the relative movements and the proportions of funding proposed in the document, the discussion of that around paragraphs 40 odd of the report would still, they'd still hold.
Actually, this will be discussed this afternoon in the closed section, so you just have to hold for a bit, okay?
That's one of the options.
Council,
Proceeds there.
you remain between us and a decision and lunch.
Yeah, so it was going to be a question, but I'll just say it in the open before we go to the close. We unanimously supported this 3 years ago. We're not designing it. We also unanimously supported $60 million budget, and 50 million of that was regional funding. We're now tipping it quite significantly to city centre funding. We also don't include the fact that this small area, the city centre, pays an overwhelming amount of rates for the small area it is in as well. So a lot of their funding will go directly to this. I think there was a study done on the city centre master plan that actually most of it will be city centre funded, despite almost 20 or 30% of the city coming into the city centre every day or every week. So I just want to say we've already supported this. We can't redesign it here. This is a really good project, and this is why we all supported it. And I think about 75% of the community who fed back on it supported it too. So I just really hope we don't get into confidential and throw this all up in the air and cost us millions of dollars, because as far as I know, the supplier has already been engaged, and any extension will cost us millions for doing nothing. Millions more of paper, delays, lawyers, whatever. It's already been there. So please let us go to confidential and just move forward on this. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move it, and Councillor Darby has agreed to second it, including C, which is largely in response to the late thing from the heart of the city anyhow. I just have a couple of things to add, having everyone else yacked on about it. I am a CBD payer. I think this is a damn good thing. The poor blokes in those areas have put up with hideous obstruction for a long time to their businesses. It's one of they've survived. I'm absolutely determined that, as well as this, the contractor will be forced to reduce his temporary traffic management and not park the utes in there. And the bit about we do have to keep it open. We have to bear in mind the people in there, and these people have put up with stuff so that people who don't live in the city can come into the city on a train. So it does have a benefit across the district, and by doing it, it looks as though it's moving to the targeted rate. It's largely being paid for by those of us who live in the city anyhow. So there we are. It's moved and seconded.
Mayor, can I move an amendment?
Give me strength.
And it's a simple one. Just include concerned stakeholders after Auckland Transport, because I think it's very, very important that we do so.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah, we can put up with that.
I think,
But you're not allowed to talk anymore. Councillor, now we're going to go.
Is Councillor Darby happy with that?
Are you okay with that, Councillor Darby?
I think the key group is the City Centre Advisory Board, which, Mayor, you're quite keen to convene
Yes,
quite
yes,
quickly.
I'm very good on that.
And it'll be in place quite quickly. And
Yes.
then that is the representative body of those stakeholders.
Motion, Mr Mayor, could that be included as an amendment if we have to, but ideally we just be included, the word stakeholders after Auckland Transport, because there's more to the CBD, as it was called, than Auckland Transport.
The proposer and the seconder, myself and Councillor Darby, are happy to accept an addition that says Auckland Transport and the City Centre
Advisory
Board, which covers all the stakeholders.
Well, the advisory board doesn't exist, but the
Yes, it
stakeholders
does.
and the payers certainly do. And
No, it does exist. It just hasn't had its first meeting, but it's about to. And there's more of us here than there are in Waihi, so we're going to have it that way. Okay.
it just shows you how important the city centre is when councillors from suburbs a long, long way from it have such strong views on it, and it certainly reinforces it's important for all Aucklanders.
Well done. Councillor Turner, please.
No, thank you. I've heard
Councillor Ferry.
I will be very brief in terms of saying that it, needs to be panel, not board. That's the official name of it, City Centre Advisory Panel, and will otherwise hold and not bother with the rest of my comments because I think we're nearly there. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Panel. Instant change. No, I'm hoping to live long enough to do this. Councillor Darby, again, anything?
It's just a brief question of John or Jenny. Look, the C is oddly worded in my regard, but look, I'll support it. But John, Jenny, does the C invite you to actually come and update us on the implementation plan for access for everyone? Because in some ways the C talks about the access for everyone plan. What is the status of that, and when are we likely to hear of an update on the Access for Everyone implementation plan?
Yeah, through the chair, it's not something I'm directly involved in and can't provide you with an update at this stage.
Perhaps through the chair, if I can just add, and I haven't had a chance to talk to the chair of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee about this, but the intention is to bring this to that committee after discussion with the chair, and also to really push this along. It's been there for a long time, and I think many of us will acknowledge it.
So they could be one and the same report rather than multiple reports?
Could potentially, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Councillor Baker. And Councillor Henderson.
No way.
Put it to the vote, please. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary? I think she was meaning no lunch. Carried. Thank you very much. Oddly enough, we're going to adjourn for lunch.